It's okay. I know you're thinking I must be crazy or jumping bail to leave California. Sure, it's hard to give up our dream of a little cottage on the ocean. We were less than 10 years from saving up the down payment. But think about it. The commute into the city gets to be a real headache. Even the biggest fans of California will admit it's a little tough to find a parking spot. And no doubt about it, I'll miss the climate. Just as long as it's with us.
And here's another aftershock or another earthquake happening right now. I'm not sure which. I'm going to get under this desk. I apologize for the theatrics.
Oh, come on. If there's anything I learned in California, it's never apologize for the theatrics. And never call San Francisco Frisco. San Francisco is such a big deal, you can just call it the city. So imagine the reaction when I announced I was leaving the entire state, voluntarily. But here's the most important thing I learned. Good television production is the same, no matter where you live.
It's about time that America stood up and did away with this traitor who claims to be an honest American.
In early 1988, the Vietnam veterans of Waterbury, Connecticut went back to war. This time, it was a war they declared themselves. The enemy was Jane Fonda.
Go away, Miss Hanoi Jane. You are not welcome in my hometown.
Jane Fonda was about to come face to face with her past, but this wouldn't be the first time. 3 years ago, Jane admitted she had regrets about her infamous trip to North Vietnam in 1972.
I don't think that I did anything that I did for the wrong reasons. I would say that sometimes my methods were wrong.
Do we really need her in Waterbury?
The battle began when Waterbury was tapped as the location for Fonda's latest movie. Jane drew fire from veterans still bitter about her trip to Hanoi to protest the Vietnam War.
Hanoi Jane, you're a traitor!
She said she went to Vietnam for Vietnam veterans. All she succeeded in doing was killing more of us.
Nearly 20 years ago, Jane Fonda had perched cheerfully on a North Vietnamese anti-aircraft gun and later claimed American POWs lied about being tortured. Her behavior did nothing to endear her to many Americans.
God bless America. God bless America.
The vets launched an assault on City Hall to keep Jane out of town. 2 other New England towns had already voted to do just that, but Waterbury refused.
The measure's rejected.
But Fonda wanted more than a victory over the vets. Deciding to negotiate peace talks, she approached Reverend John McCauley, who had served as a Marine in Vietnam before entering the ministry.
Steve, of course, is Jane Fonda's spokesman, and he gave me a call. And we talked on the phone, and I said, you know, it would be really good if we had a face-to-face meeting. And he said, that's exactly what Jane said when this began.
Jane came to town alone to face 24 vets who still didn't like her at all.
What happened is when she arrived, she was very tense, and so were the veterans. We didn't know what to expect.
Fonda spoke first. She told the vets why she went to Vietnam to protest the war. Then the vets took over. They interrogated her about her actions there and told her how much pain she had caused them.
She used the words, I am ashamed of some of what I did. And we felt that if she was big enough to say that, then we needed to be big enough to meet her halfway and forgive her.
She just got a lesson about the war that she never, ever knew existed. And she said that to us.
3.5 emotional hours later, the vets and Jane had reached a truce.
She cried a little bit, and some of the men did.
Jane and the veterans decided it was time to work together. They planned a benefit for the children of victims of Agent Orange, the chemical defoliant accused of causing birth defects. The benefit would be a symbolic way of healing the wounds of Vietnam.
You take a first light, the South Main, you go all the way down. First light is just up on the left side. That's this movie there.
A few weeks later, filming began in Waterbury. The town seemed to welcome Jane with open arms. Still, for a small minority of veterans, the war was not over.
Hanoi! Jane, your favorite color must be red, Jane. You know it.
While Jane pressed ahead with the film, she also addressed other issues at local fundraisers. Her speech on behalf of Soviet Jews won Jane a warm spot in the hearts of many area residents.
Say that some of you may be asking yourselves, how come a shiksa like me got involved in this issue?
You know, people don't want to forget the Hanoi Jane part, but when you listen to her do something like this, she does a lot of good for a lot of people.
In the meantime, some of the veterans were hedging on their truce with Jane. On the night of the benefit, even some of the veterans who'd planned the event retreated a safe distance.
It doesn't mend fences. It doesn't forgive or forget. It's not about that. It's not about mending fences. It's about a common ground for all of us, and that's these children with these problems.
I also want to say that we're very, very happy to be in Waterbury. Very, very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all.
Afterwards, hundreds of townspeople paid $15 apiece to have a picture taken with the famous pair. The benefit raised $25,000, and most veterans seemed at peace with Jane.
She didn't have to come and meet with the veterans this week. She didn't have to go on national TV. She doesn't have to make the movie. She's a millionaire in her own right.
So just why did Jane work so hard to make things right with the veterans of Waterbury? Maybe the answer lies in her determination to help Soviet Jews and others who suffer injustice. It seems Jane just doesn't tolerate injustice, even her own.
I've inspired new people to get involved, and we form links and we pass the torch one to the other. And that's how we remain decent people, and it's how we keep movements alive. And I hope that I have passed a torch to some of you tonight. Thank you very much.
If you really get the hip action into it, then it can look kind of strange. But the strange looks don't bother me.
The latest fitness craze to hit the country looks suspiciously familiar. Like you used to do it all the time, before you got your driver's license. Walking. Remember? But now, walking for exercise is called striding.
Now we're into striding. We have been for the last 3 months. And we find it's a good way to get some exercise and get the baby outside and keep them quiet.
A lot of city people like it because you just step up your pace as you walk to lunch and presto, you just exercised.
In a business situation, it tends to be very sedentary. And if I do a lot of entertaining in business, and if I didn't exercise, I would be fat.
Go ahead, try it. You can take striding very seriously. There's even Olympic competition for it in 1988, and some predict striding will edge out running as the preferred method of American exercise.
We get a lot of runners that look at us and go, "He's walking! Oh my God, he's walking faster than I'm running!"
But give up running for striding? Let's face it, a lot of us believe no pain, no gain. Walking just doesn't hurt enough to be healthy. Robert Edwards is one of 18 million people who have suffered running injuries.
A lot of times people can't run. The average person cannot. They run, they get knee problems, they get back problems. And the best thing about striding is that what's going to happen is that you're not going to get those problems. You don't get any injuries.
And you do burn calories. Walking approximately 4 miles an hour burns up to 160 calories a mile. It's as easy as packing an extra pair of shoes to the office. And one extra benefit for the gray flannel suit crowd.
Actually, with striding, you don't sweat. You glow.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Like an idea whose time has come.
Yes, sir.
Not even the marching of mighty armies can halt us.
Yes, sir.
We are moving to the land of freedom.
First there was the marching with patience and hope, but no one listened until there were gunshots. The bloody violence of the 60s, so much violence, so much grief. Those who spoke for racial equality became casualties of the decade. Kennedy and King were silenced, and people who had followed them felt their cries for civil rights would never be heard.
Good afternoon and welcome to Focus. We are literally in the field today. November 18th signals the beginning of trapping season in Michigan, and with it comes a lot of controversy. Some say that it's inhumane, and others say that it's the only humane way to control an animal population, or at least a very significant way. So we've come to a small marsh here in Kent County today to find out a little bit more about trapping.
In fine Liberace form, Bob is a candidate for the Guinness Book of World Records as the inventor of the world's largest electronic organ. Not only that, Liberace's longtime manager is taking Bob under his wing. Bob will debut the instrument at Trump's Castle Casino.
Tomorrow night on PM Magazine.
Now, Carrie, when you drive, I know you have a need for speed.
Yes, but at least I got that need for speed temporarily satisfied legally when I got to ride in a real race car.
Well, if you lived in Germany, you'd be in heaven, because every day you could commute to work at whatever speed you want on the Autobahn.
Snakes have been with us since the beginning of time. It's been said as far back as the Garden of Eden. Some people fear them, others revere them as gods. But these folks, they don't fear or worship snakes. Once a year, they get together to hunt them at Indian Steps Museum in Pennsylvania.
It's the ultimate thing to catch the biggest one that was ever caught.
People ride motorcycles. I like to hunt snakes.
I got my first rattlesnake 2 weeks ago. That was 40 inches, and I got another one last Saturday. So I really like it.
That's a pretty sharp patch, Bill. I'd like to have one myself. How do you go about getting one?
Well, Doug, all you have to do is go to a rattlesnake hunt anywhere in Pennsylvania and get yourself bitten by a timber rattlesnake or a copperhead.
That's all.
Okay, so perhaps your biggest fear is being bitten by one of these critters and dying. But in fact, the mortality rate is lower than you might expect, as self-taught snake expert Gordon Heisong explained.
Of the 6,000 or 7,000 people bitten each year, less than 20 people a year die from snake bite. Reason being, many of the bites are not venomous. In other words, the snake is not injecting venom. He is saving the venom for food.
Gene has been bitten more times than he can count. In fact, he thought he could build up an immunity to the venom.
I used to let baby copperheads and rattlers bite me on the fingers to do that, but I guess I didn't do it right. Instead of building up immunity, I built up an explosion in me.
And that explosion took place the day he was bitten by one too many rattlers and was hospitalized for 28 days in a shock trauma unit. But hey, that hasn't stopped him from pursuing his lifelong hobby.
I was just a little tacker, and I just started picking them up and taking them home, and it just developed into something that stuck with me all my life.
After the hunt, these snakers bring back their loot to a snake pit to be measured.
We fear snakes because they show us the epitome of evil.
They bit me, and I laid out in the mountains for almost 3 days, and then spent 28 days in shock trauma in Baltimore.
I mean, something like people ride motorcycles. I like to hunt snakes.
For the past 26 years, people have gathered for one special day at Indian Steps, Pennsylvania. They bring the family pet, and everybody gets a full day of food, sunshine, or snake hunting. And we're not talking the tame little garden variety either. These folks are after the poisonous copperhead. Veteran snake hunter Eugene Grove looks like he'd bite back if any snake was crazy enough to take him on. But Eugene has got a soft side. In fact, he considers a snake hunt almost romantic.
Why do you keep hunting snakes? What makes you do it?
Why does a guy like a beautiful woman?
So far, it's been a long, hot morning. The only satisfied hunters have been the mosquitoes kicked up from the underbrush. But Eugene and his son plod on. Eugene narrowly avoids the copperhead's fangs, but he's already been bitten over 20 times. At one point, he thought he could build an immunity that way.
I used to let baby copperheads and rattlers bite me on the fingers to do that, but I guess I didn't do it right.
But he does it right today. He captures not only one snake, but two.
I always found myself nostalgic for the copperheads of the Midwest, not to mention the tornadoes, the wind chill factor, and radon. What, am I crazy? No, it's just that I've always believed in Dorothy.